Welcome to the Prime Health Podcast with your host, Dr. Derek Barron. Dr. Barron interviews doctors, wellness experts, and healthcare leaders who are revolutionizing how we approach health and longevity. The Prime Health Podcast explores breakthrough science, personal and patient stories, and practical insights that are shaping the future of health and wellness. So sit back, listen in, and prepare to transform how you think about your path towards Prime Health with Dr. Barron and his special guest.
Welcome back to the Prime Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Derek Barron, and I'm here to bring you cutting-edge insights and practical strategies from leading healthcare experts for your journey to prime health in life and in business. Now, I want you to consider this. Most people think functional health only belongs in private clinics, but today's guest is proving that wrong. Margaret Floyd Barry of Restorative Corporate Wellness is taking root cause medicine out of the practitioner's office and placing it straight into employee benefit programs, changing how companies think about health, performance, and long-term care. So I'm excited to learn more about that with Margaret. And before we get into that, just a quick message from our sponsor, Growth Solutions, where we believe every healthcare professional deserves an exceptional growth partner to match their ambition and reach their potential. Growth Solution eliminates stressors in the business, such as new patient or client acquisitions, marketing and growth strategies, and reducing operational chaos with proven systems, frameworks, and SOPs. We also help you understand AI and the agents. Those robots are coming, whether we like them or not. We don't consider ourselves an agency or vendor. We consider ourselves your growth partner. So if you ever thought this, I'm too busy to grow, too slow to scale, or too overwhelmed to fix it, we could be your solution. So if you're interested for a free growth consultation, just drop the word grow below, or feel free to DM me on any of the social platforms out there. But you came here for a reason, and that's to meet our amazing guest and hear her story. Margaret, welcome to the Prime Health Podcast, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am a functional nutritionist and master restorative health practitioner, and I've been helping people with complex health issues turn those around since about 2007. And really the people that I have specialized in are those people who have tried everything. You know, we know the type. They've gone from practitioner to practitioner. They've tried all the things. They still feel like garbage. And basically, I was that person back in my 30s, as so many of us in this field. We were once the clients and patients ourselves. And since then, I have worked with hundreds of thousands of people myself, indirectly with thousands via the training program that I run and various practices that I've run. Written a couple books, Eat Naked and the Naked Foods Cookbook. I actually run a school. I'm the executive director of the Institute of Restorative Health, where we train other health professionals in the advanced clinical toolkit that we use. But most importantly and relevant to our conversation here today is I am the founder and CEO of Restorative Corporate Wellness, as you mentioned, which is a first of its kind private practice that's actually part of employee benefits programs of some of the most leading edge companies in this space. So these are companies that are looking to go well beyond the usual corporate wellness to giving a level of health transformation that most of their employees honestly never even knew existed or would have access to otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to learn more about that. I appreciate you have a vast history of working in this. And since you said, what did you say, 2007?
Since 2007, yes. Career number 2 for me, but yeah, since 2007.
Oh, fantastic. So I always ask this question to kind of start out with, was there a moment in life, a situation, an epiphany that said, I want to go into or choose a career in medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 very specific moments. One with my own personal health. As I mentioned, I was that person back in my 20s. This was before I made the decision to make the change, but it was the moment that opened my eyes to the power of this work. I had eczema, head to toe. Anyone who's had eczema can feel the itch and the pain as soon as I say that. Anyone who hasn't, let me just tell you, it's brutal. It is like this chronic, incessant itch that just does not stop. And it can happen anywhere on your body. And I basically had it everywhere. And it was being managed, I say in heavy quotations, with corticoid steroid creams and or cortisone steroid creams. And it got to a point when I was in my mid-20s when it was on my eyelids. And I remember going to the doctor and the doctor saying, well, we'll just increase the strength of the cream. And there was just this little voice. I knew nothing about functional health or natural anything or other. I mean, at the time my diet was I rotated, my beverages between coffee and wine, and I drank different forms of white starch, be it the bagel in the morning or, pasta. I was not living, I was living my best life in some ways, but definitely not in others. And But there was this little voice at the back of my head that was like, is that a good idea? Like I just sort of imagined my eyelids melting off, which I don't think it would have happened, but it definitely gave me pause and thought maybe there's another way. And a very dear friend of mine at the time was very into all the like natural stuff. And she said, do you want to try a different route? And so I had my very first experience working with a functionally minded practitioner. And that eczema that I'd had, so I think I was 25 or 26. I'd had that eczema since I was like 13 or 14.
Oh my.
And it went away within 3 weeks and it never came back. That is over 25 years ago now. And that was this moment of like, wow. And we manipulated my diet and I took the supplement. I did all these things, it was a whole process, but it was gone and gone for good. No creams, nothing to manage. So that was the big aha. And then, the other part of my story is my mom was quite ill with autoimmune disease. And she ultimately, she had 3 different types of very severe autoimmune disease and ultimately lost her life to the side effects of the medications that were keeping her alive. And so you put those 2 things side by side and it was just this wake up call of like, something is not working here. And I want to do something about it. So here I am.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm sorry about your personal struggle with that and truly sorry about your mother. That's unfortunate. I mean, it helps because we can sit in somebody's shoes. We can understand them better when it has happened to us. I don't always wish that upon people by any means, especially from a family perspective. But if I may ask in that situation, what do you think was the most impactful for you to get rid of your condition, the eczema? What do you think it was the combination, or from your years of learning after, what do you think really made the biggest benefit?
I think that I was regularly consuming some pretty major dietary triggers. I also know we did a lot of support around my gut, although not as comprehensive as I did later on. There was actually some other health issues that didn't get resolved in that process that later were resolved when I became a practitioner and learned how to do this stuff even more thoroughly than I had done. And I think there was some detoxification support later on. I've done some genetic testing on myself, and I have like the most astonishingly poorly functioning detoxification pathways in all the different ways that one can detoxify. My body is a little compromised in that. So she did a bunch of liver support, and I think it was those 3 pieces together. And no GP or dermatologist is asking about your detox and your diet and your gut. Nobody.
Still many aren't. Sadly enough, still many aren't. Yeah. Why we need more functional medicine providers that are out there.
Yes.
So we'll kind of dive into how you've transitioned into the workplace essentially. But most people think of like workplace wellness, like they get a gym membership or they have what's called silver sneakers or they get their health screenings. How do you feel functional health is different, and why is the corporate sector really positioned to bridge that gap?
This is such an important question. I think corporate wellness programs are really important. I don't want to undermine them. A gym membership can be absolutely life-changing, and they're really a signal to the employee that the company really cares about and is invested in the whole person. They're more than just these kind of bodies that show up virtually or in person to do a thing, right? Like they really send that signal, and they are supporting the whole person. The challenge with most corporate wellness programs, and I would say this really is like 99% of them that I've seen, they only scratch the surface, right? Like a gym membership is great. Lunch and learn webinars are great. Your annual health screen, like these are really, really important. Health fairs, challenges, like all of these things are key, but they're what I think of as kind of health light. Like I think about myself when I was, when I had the eczema, I was in the corporate world. And I had the gym membership. I went to lunch and learns. I actually thought I was eating well. I knew I probably should drink a little less, some of these really obvious things, but it was health light. I had access to all of that, and it did nothing to help me with my eczema. And the reality is, eczema, it's an annoying condition, but it's, the reality that the stark reality is that over 60% of the adult population in the US has at least one or more serious metabolic abnormality. So that's one or more combination of things like obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, abnormal glucose levels, imbalanced lipids, right? So, and you flip that around, look at it another way. There was a survey done by the CDC between 2021 and 2023. It found that only 36.4 adults, so that's just a little bit above a third of adults, have no cardiovascular disease risk factors. So that's basically 66% of adults are walking around with one serious, this is not eczema. Eczema is annoying, as I said, and it's painful, but it's not life-threatening. These are serious risk factors of the number one killer in the US. And these adults, they don't live in bubbles, right? These are people at jobs. They have jobs, many of them in the corporate sector. And so a gym membership or these annual screens, et cetera, they're a good first step, but the problem is way freaking bigger than that. And it deserves so much more. And this is where functional health can have a really significant impact, right? We're not just diagnosing a disease and then managing it via a medical intervention. Like my issue at the time was not some deficiency in a steroid cream. My issue was so much deeper than that. And so in the functional space, we do that deeper digging. We ask that all important question of why? Why does this person sitting in front of me have eczema? Why does this person sitting in front of me struggle with migraines every week? Why does this person have 2 or 3 of these serious metabolic issues that putting them at really great risk of a cardiovascular event? Like what led to this dysregulation? And when we have the answer to those questions, that guides us not to just manage a disease process, but actually supporting the whole person to create in their system the conditions to allow them to actually heal. It is a completely different approach, both from conventional medicine, but also from this health light that we get with corporate wellness programs. Yeah. When it's done right, the impact is unbelievable. So corporations have a really unique opportunity in that they have a huge investment. Like it or not, they are hugely invested in their people. It's one of the most important assets they have now more than ever, right? And if you can have a workforce, employees who are highly functioning, who have full cognitive capacity, who have their energy, who are just healthy, that person is an invaluable resource. That person is not taking off lots of sick days. That person is showing up at work without brain fog and just sort of, drugging themselves through the day with caffeine and sugar. They're actually able to problem solve, to think creatively. They can be really your competitive edge. And so investing in our people, I believe, is one of the absolute most profound things that we can do. And we need to do that more than, as I said, just the lunch and learns and these things that they have their role, but they're not going to get us to where we really need to go.
Mm-hmm. Is there a statistic that says if there are, 1 million corporations out there, what percentage of the corporations actually have corporate wellness programs?
Probably is a statistic. Do I know that statistic at the tip of my fingertips? Okay, I do not. Yeah. That's a good statistic to know.
Yeah. Okay. And I know I was never really in the corporate world. My wife has been in the corporate world and how that's worked. And the sad part about it is they don't push it. It's it's if it's there, did I see it as one of the bullet points? Can I take advantage of that as an opportunity? And yes, it's a great thing, but boy, they should want to involve their employees more with that. They should be pushing it. And that's probably where your company steps into play, because the typical individual like yourself had to seek out that care outside of the corporate wellness structure where you were having problems, you sought that care. So it's very one-on-one patient centric, but it looks like you're changing that to be able to bring it to the awareness of the corporate level, but then educate them, I'm sure, on this is why you should be having us here because of how we can help your population of employees.
You've hit on 2 incredibly important points, because that is what this situation solves. Embedding this work within a corporate benefits plan we know in the functional space, the vast majority of it sits out the conventional, sort of standard of care. So it sits outside what most people know about and what most people can afford. It's not covered by insurance largely. It's expensive. It's not inexpensive work. And I can remember back in my 20s, it was a freaking stretch for me to go to that practitioner. It was one of those, like I was at the end of my rope. And that's why I did it. And that is what we see in the functional space is people who are highly motivated because they're really miserable and they can afford it and they're figuring out how to make it work. When you have it within the corporate environment as part of the benefits offering, what you're doing is now you're actually putting a model in front of people who never would have heard about it otherwise. I would not have heard about this had it not been for my girlfriend back in the day. Sure. Definitely functional health that was back in 99, 2000. It was very, maybe earlier. No, it was around then. It was a long time ago. And it was, this was not a time when it was spoken about, but now there's a bit more awareness, but people still don't know where to go. And a lot of them can't afford it. And it is very, the numbers just work out where it becomes very cost effective for the corporation to embed this into their offering. It's just often a diversion of some of the funds. And I want to say this does not replace a corporate wellness program. It actually sits alongside and becomes part of a corporate wellness program really beautifully, because let me tell you, that person who is struggling to even get to work in the morning, who's exhausted, surviving on caffeine all day, brain fog, like just really struggling, they're not taking advantage of the gym membership. Right? Like they actually need to be at a certain place in their health to be able to actually take advantage of the other wellness benefits. And one of the things that we've seen is that the people who enter into the program, work one-on-one with a practitioner, start reclaiming their health. Now they become the biggest advocates for all of the things because they actually have the internal capacity to do so. So it's a really smart allocation of resources and can actually leverage the investment the companies are already making in the rest of the corporate wellness in a way that actually gets them results.
Yeah. So I assume that this is the way you're placing this into the corporations, is that this goes from the boardroom, meaning the top level, all the way down to the people that are in the break room. And that could be from, custodial services to sales to whatever it means. It covers the entire capacity of the business. So it is truly making the business healthier and the individuals healthier.
100%. I mean, we're thinking, so the boardroom decision is the decision to actually invest into this type of program that goes so much deeper. And then, in the rest of the organization, it's really important that they send a consistent message, right? If you are encouraging your employees to really dive in and reclaim their health, and then the food that's on offer in like the snack room is donuts, there's a disconnect there, right? Like we need to be one of the, you want to create an environment that makes the success of the employees in terms of their health far more likely. And there's some great examples. Of course, we hear of the big, if you go into like the Google campus or some of these like really gigantic companies, they invest a whole ton of money and energy and resources into things like, nap rooms. And they recognize that you might need to take meetings walking outside. And there's a whole diversity of food and they accommodate different diets, like that kind of thing. 100%. Doesn't need to be that grandiose in many ways. It can simply be reallocating the budget that you have. If you're going to be offering things to your employees to eat, just as a very simple example, let's not make it highly processed, starchy foods that are going to give them a blood sugar crash. Like let's make it a bowl full of fruit instead of a bowl full of donuts, like just as a super simple swap, right? Like that's very easy. And then that becomes more consistent and also actually supports those people who are doing, like taking the extra effort. You can never force anybody into this kind of thing, but you can create an environment that encourages it and supports those who have decided to take the plunge. And I think it's really important for those companies who are thinking about this to be mindful of that full picture, that it really goes beyond just them throwing a few dollars at this and then saying, okay, well, those who want to take it up will, and those who won't, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And I think that it goes that there's a lot of courage in wanting to make this change from the employee standpoint. Like they're just not sure what it's like. If you get one, it's a trickle down effect where more and more are going to take advantage of that. And I'm sure the company sees that over time, that we implemented this on January 1. We've noticed small changes, but by, first quarter, second quarter end, you're starting to see bigger changes across the board. And I'm sure you have the ability of showing it's not only changing your employees' lives, but it's changing potentially revenue of the business.
Well, it's changing things on so many different levels. So we do see this trickle down effect, or trickle down is probably not the right term for it, but you'll see it like one person in a department will engage in the work and start having incredible results and then talk to their friends, right? Yeah. So we will see this sort of like almost like little section by little section within a company. Like we'll have these like little pockets where there's a whole group of friends or group of colleagues who end up being real advocates for this work because they see one person get such great results, and then they just talk to their friends and they're like, oh my gosh, did you realize that the company sponsors us to do this? Like, take advantage of it. Yeah. I think another great strategy is to have people on the executive team take advantage of it. Let's be honest, they need it, right? Like there are they can be really maxed out, and this kind of support can be invaluable to them, but it also helps them understand the potential impact and become real advocates for it throughout the company. They can be real champions of it. There's the benefits to this kind of work are really, some of them are obvious. The ones that I said, if you have somebody who is really struggling with their health, and every single one of us has had those days, some of us, many of those days. I can remember back in the day when I used to have, the eczema, and I described a little bit of my diet. It was a joke amongst my peers. I would be in a meeting and I was in a pretty high position. I was the VP at the organization I was at. And I remember, and I would I just sort of nod off. And I wasn't even aware it was happening. But my colleagues got so used to that happening that someone would always have chocolate around, and they just all of a sudden a piece of chocolate would appear in front of me and I'd eat it and I'd and I'd kind of come back to life. Now I could get away with it because I was 25. Yeah. But had that progressed and I not turned that around, I mean, I can remember times where I just, if I did nod off like that, kind of in the middle of a work afternoon, I could lose, 40 minutes just sort of staring into space, just tuned out because I was having a blood sugar crash and wasn't really aware of what that meant. I was not, I know now, I can remember then the idea of an afternoon without coffee and sugar, whether that's some kind of pastry or a chocolate, I could not conceive that was possible because that is how I was surviving. And now as a clinician, I look back and I think, oh my gosh, the highs and the crashes that I was navigating every single day. And then the number of sick days due to migraines, due to gut issues. I'd have to lie down after some meals. I had such crippling gut pain. I mean, I was lean. And so I thought I was healthy, but I would have to lie down sometimes just to survive the gut pains because of a meal I'd eaten. That's not someone who is really doing the best they can to support, in whatever their role is at the company. And a lot of people are sort of quietly suffering and they're not at their best. And so there's a really obvious benefit that you get, a healthy employee, one that's really truly thriving can be a really star player. They have all of their capacity. We have a saying in the field, you've probably heard it. Someone with their health has, hundreds of goals. Someone without their health has one goal. That's all you can think about. When you're not feeling well, it's all consuming. So that's one. But then there's the benefit of when you bring something to an individual who is suffering like that, and they experience a life-changing result, which is what happens in these programs. The amount of loyalty that you have from that individual to the company, I mean, it becomes this fierce loyalty of this company has my back. Not only are they interested in tossing me the discounted gym membership or whatever it is, but they're so invested in me and they gave me this gift of my health back. And that kind of fierce loyalty in this day and age is rare. Yeah. Rare. So we really, those two pieces alone are worth the investment right there. But then particularly for companies who are self-insured, which most of the companies that we work with are self-insured. So they're directly paying for medical procedures, prescriptions, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when you have people who have their health, they don't need that. I can remember, one of the first companies that we worked with, the global senior vice president that championed the program, looked me in the eyes and said, Margaret, I have never seen anything like this. My new mission is to get as many employees and their, global multinational, out of the drudgery of the conventional medical model and into this so they can truly heal and truly thrive. And it is probably no surprise that this is a very coveted organization to work at, because they take such exceptional care of their people. So, there's a cost savings there if they're the ones who are saving, not having to spend as much money on the prescriptions and whatnot. But I actually think that's the smallest piece of the puzzle. I think everything else that we've just talked about is why this is really, or it should be, in my opinion, my very biased opinion, a no-brainer for any company who really cares to make an impact.
Yeah, Margaret, you said a very, you said a very important word, and I think that's retention. And nowadays, companies need to retain their employee. They spend a tremendous amount of time trying to find an employee. They spend a tremendous amount of time educating that employee, hopefully educating them on the culture of the business. Now we want them to stay there. We want to retain them because, people are sticking 3 years, maybe 4 years at companies now. So if you do offer this cherry on top of this great employment, hopefully that's what's keeping people around. So I think retention is a big part. I'm sure this is helping them with that. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So what would you say to a CEO that has a gym membership, will do lunch and learns, and like, but we have it, what would you say to that CEO that it sounds great, but this is what we have? How is yours different?
I would say, really, let's take a good hard look at what you're offering. Is it actually having the kind of impact that you're wanting it to have? Or is it having the kind of impact that it really needs to have in order to ensure employee retention, employee loyalty, a really thriving, healthy, productive, effective workforce? So that's the first question, is like, are you getting, like, what are your goals for this? And are they achieving the goals? Because I will be honest, if your goals are just to like throw a bit of cash so that people feel good and you don't really care whether it works or not, you're probably not the person who's, listening to this podcast, but you're probably not the person who is thinking about ways to like really, to be more cutting edge and this kind of stuff and really add greater value. But I think that people listening to this and somebody who really cares about their team members, and I like to think that that's more the norm and not the exception, is, let's think about what are the goals of this wellness program, and are they actually achieving it? What kind of turnout are you having? What kind of feedback? Are people really engaged with it? And to my point earlier, I think it's really important to remember that this does not replace what you're already doing in your corporate wellness program. It actually allows your employees to take better advantage of them. Because somebody who is really struggling on 5 different medications, ton of weight to lose, do they need a gym membership? Yeah, really, really great if they got to the gym. Are they the ones the most likely to use it? Probably not. Maybe they get the gym membership, but do they actually go? And are they able to do the kind of workouts that they need to do? Like there's so many layers to this. I think sometimes it's easy to sort of check the box and say, well, we offered the membership, and we can just easily run the statistics. How many people took us up on that, and what's the percentage in that? But I think that to truly have the kind of impact that we're talking about here, and to create the kind of environment for your employees to really thrive, we need to go a lot deeper than just checking the box and figuring out, statistics on how many people took it up. We need to be looking at what are the changes, what are the transformations that these individuals are having. Are they having change? Are they experiencing change? Are they experiencing actual health transformations as a result of these programs? And I think the next question I can anticipate, because I've had it from a CEO, will be, well, that's not my job. And you know what? You're right. It's not your job. But it's a fiercely competitive market out there right now, and you want to attract top talent?
Yeah.
This is a great way to do it. And it's not that expensive. Like the investment is not insane. It's going to be very different from company to company, depending on the number of employees and the scope. I mean, there's many factors that go into it. But for the return that we're talking about, it is actually quite an affordable spend, and it can just be so high impact. So I think that for a leader of an organization that wants to stay competitive, that wants to be really forward thinking, and that wants to create impact, right? An organization that is keen to ensure that, not only are they just generating profits, but they're creating an amazing environment for their employees to be in, and they're just creating a really positive ripple effect through their work. This is just a great way to do it.
Yeah. I love it. It's so interesting to bring it from the individual into the business for them to understand the importance. So let's just say there's a couple of CEOs that are listening to this or thinking of it, or their employee that can approach their CEO about it. What would you say is the differentiator of your company on how you can do it versus any of the competition that's out there?
Well, quite frankly, there's not a lot of competition doing what we do in this way yet. I anticipate there will be probably soon as people learn about this. But when we're talking with corporations, often we're talking with companies who have, very large contracts with some of the big corporate wellness, companies out there. What we do is entirely different, entirely different. They're often educational. They offer, incentives and challenges and a nice structure to support behavior change. But what they aren't able to do is that really in-depth, one-on-one, highly customized work that allows us to really support that one person in front of you. And that sounds hard to scale. And there's ways that it is more challenging to scale than just like a, generic program. I can have a lunch and learn webinar with thousands of people on it. Yes. And what kind of impact are you actually having? And those are really good. We do webinars too. So, we're not into education, but we want to take it a lot further than that. So this is really about the level of customization. I mean, that was actually a big piece of my journey as a practitioner. When I first became a nutrition professional, I learned, the different diets we could use, some of the basic supplements, I had all that. And honestly, back when I first started in 2007, 2008, what we could do by putting on someone on an just a generic diet, like lowering their carb intake and increasing good protein, fats, and veggies, we could have really quite dramatic results. And the unfortunate state of affairs is people are a lot sicker. And it takes a lot more like that. Those strategies weren't working. I was actually, just a bit of backstory for me, about 2012, 13, I was actually thinking about stepping away from private practice because I was feeling so frustrated that the more generic approaches that I'd been trained in, they just did not seem as effective. I wasn't getting the kind of results that I was at the beginning of my practice. And I specifically wasn't getting the kind of results with the description I mentioned at the beginning, that person who's been from practitioner to practitioner to practitioner, they've done all the things and they're still just feel awful. And those people really stumped me, but those were the people I really wanted to help. And it was the school that I now run, the Institute of Restorative Health. I actually took the very first program back in 2013. I should know that, spring of 2013. And it changed everything for me. 2014. Anyways, it changed everything for me. And so it has, understanding the need to customize. And, our approach is not to just hand a generic diet, but we do believe in testing and understanding and really, really customizing our recommendations, because there's a ton that we can do with food. But it's really helpful to know exactly what's going on kind of under the hood, so to speak, so that we can dial in our recommendations very specifically, because what works for you might not work for me, might not work for my husband, my kids. It can be a little different from person to person. There's certain generalities 100%, and that can move us in the right direction. But is it going to be the thing that helps us cross the finish line to that true thriving health?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah.
So, and I think of myself back when I resolved the eczema and my diet dramatically improved after I did that work with that functional practitioner, but I still had chronic migraines, crazy digestive issues, blood sugar crashes. So I was pretty far from the home stretch, right? Like I didn't have eczema anymore.
Yeah.
Great. But a lot of other issues. So I think a lot of people are in that situation. In my experience, and you probably see this as well, a lot of people don't actually even know what true health really feels like. They
Yeah.
don't know what's possible, how good they
Mhm.
can feel. And so that's part of our mission, is to really help people get there.
Yeah. It's been so long since they felt good. The feeling bad
Yeah,
is normal to them. It's
it's
a
become
really,
so normalized.
yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
tough spot to be in. From the business perspective with restorative corporate wellness, what's the
Yeah.
focus on your business venture right now?
The focus of our business venture is to bring this into more corporations. It's a phenomenal model. We've proven it. We've got incredible feedback and statistics and testimonials and all of that. And so really it's just about spreading this to more companies who want to create amazing environment for their employees and really truly invest in their employees in quite a profound way that
Yeah.
doesn't cost them tons, but is extremely high impact.
Yeah. What's the challenge of why you think companies are not taking advantage of it? They don't know it exists, or they,
I think that's the biggest thing. Most aren't aware that it exists.
right.
I think, let's, the world's a little upside down right now. Let's just say is a lot of uncertainty. And I think there's some fear for sure. And a lot of just there's a lot of it being kind of in survival mode. And sometimes when we're in survival mode, we're not at our most sort of creative. Sometimes it forces creativity and sometimes it can really clamp that down. So I think that, but a lot of it is awareness. We're still fairly new in this space. And so, and our focus has not been on really getting out there and promoting this publicly. Our focus has been really dialing it in with the companies we are working with,
Yeah.
so that when we go to the next companies, that it's just such a proven model that we can implement, and there it becomes a much lower risk than it has been for the first ones we've worked with.
Yeah. You want them to understand it's an easy yes versus let me think about it. Yeah. And it should be across the board. Again, it's not very cost effective. It's not very costly. Benefits for ROI, I'm sure, are through the roof for the client, the business itself, and for the end user, meaning their employee. And if their employee's happy, they're going to be there for longer, like we said, for a period of time. Do you utilize AI in your business to help you with what you do?
Yes, in appropriate ways, I'm going to say. I think that there's some scary stuff happening with AI in the health space. I know of some people just throwing, lab works into, Chat GPT or whatnot. And I'm just going to make a PSA right now. Please don't do that. Whether you're a practitioner or you're an individual, Chat GPT can be really good at some things, but if you don't know when it's wrong, I always say, this is not decorating our bathroom we're talking about. This is your health. You really want to take it seriously. So, but are we using it to help us streamline processes, as sort of a thought partner in terms of coming up with new approaches or content and that kind of thing? 100%. Yeah, no, I think it's a really fantastic tool. Again, used appropriately with all of these things, there's real upside, and then there's risks. And of course, we're in that messy getting to understand what it's capable of as well as its limitations. So that's we're not using it, but we're cautious. Yeah. And
I saw the state of Utah is allowing for re-prescription. An AI company that is reading through the notes and saying, yes, we'll write another prescription for you. So you don't go to the doctor anymore. If it's a re-prescription, they just rewrite it. And 99.2%. I said, I would hate to be the 0.8% that it doesn't work for, that it's not subjective to. So yeah, it's unfortunate.
That scares me. That scares me for a whole number of reasons. But, I can appreciate that there's an efficiency there.
Yeah.
And I think there's other factors we need to consider beyond efficiency, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Margaret, question for you. Yeah. Could you share a success story of a company that you onboarded and how it made a difference in the company and probably their employees as well?
Yeah. I'm not able to name any names, sure. But one of our Hallmark companies, they they did not even know that this was possible. And it was actually one of the people within their corporate wellness program who knew about this, and understood that they could do much more, and actually tried to leave because she was feeling like they were just scratching the surface and was really wanting to go a lot deeper with her own work. And she ushered this method and this process and practice into their employee benefits program. It's the first one that we worked with, and it has been across the board a huge success. Key factors were having key members of the executive team, of the senior executive team, participate in it so they could experience firsthand the transformation themselves. That was a really key ingredient to it. And also making sure that it didn't displace the current wellness program. It complemented it. So it was a piece that fit into an existing puzzle, as opposed to breaking up a puzzle and trying to recreate it from scratch. I think that was another really key ingredient to allow it to be successful. It also started off with just one clinician working independently. So it was a slower ramp up, whereas now there's 3 clinicians, and, often a wait list for their time. So it's very well received. And, it's been a rollout kind of, as I said, department by department, where people experience. I think that's one of the key ingredients in this is for as people, just like in a lot of, it really mirrors what we're seeing in functional health overall. How does the word spread about it? Yes, you hear about it in podcasts and this and that, but a lot of it is just hearing from somebody that who was really sick and really struggling, and then they have a transformation and tell all their friends about it. Yeah. I think that's how, I know for me in my personal practice, that's how my practice, I was doing well. And then I had somebody who has quite a big audience of her own, had incredible results, and started shouting from the rooftops, And so it's a process with that, as well as, of course, you want to make sure that there are systems and mechanisms of communicating the benefits. I actually don't think that that's as effective as the word of mouth. You can, employees are bombarded by emails inviting them to this, that, and the other all day long, right? And everything is going to sound great. But when they see, Lucy, who sits kitty corner to them in their office, lose 30 pounds and start feeling fantastic and raving about this program, now we're paying attention, right? So we have focused less on trying to kind of push it out and being a little bit more organic with it, and just really focused on the impact and letting that speak. As of course, also doing, as I said, doing the webinars and those kinds of things. We actually do, it sounded like I was dismissing challenges at the front end. I love a good challenge. We've done some, in one of the companies we worked with, we did a CGM challenge where the company sponsored CGMs for a month. So they had 2 CGMs, and everyone did it as a group. We all on the call and the Zoom together, we all put in our CGMs together and supported them in understanding how to establish a baseline CGM. I think your audience knows this, but a continuous glucose monitor, it's normally used medically to manage diabetes. That was not the context in which we were using it. We were using it as a really educational tool so that they could see firsthand with real data what was happening with different inputs, whether that be a poor night of sleep, afternoon snack, the different pieces, they could see real time what happens, at least to their blood sugar. And so we help them navigate that, with some education along the way, helping them establish their baseline and then learning how to tweak things so that they could understand how to manipulate variables to help to smooth out that blood sugar spikes and crashes, which has the upside of smoothing out their energy.
Absolutely. It's important. My wife's a type 1 diabetic. I completely understand the benefit of a CGM, and for people to understand it's becoming more commonplace, and for you to put that as a challenge. Everybody likes a little bit of a sporty challenge for the most part, and they want to win. They want their numbers lower or they want their numbers higher, depending on what that is. So I think that's a cool way to do it. Just a couple of last questions here. I'll share all of your contact information, website, everything. But for those that are listening or watching, where would you like them to go to learn more about you and your company?
Absolutely. Well, restorative-corporate-wellness.com is our website, and you can see what we're up to there. if there's any practitioners in the audience and you're thinking, ooh, I'd like to do this kind of thing, we hire exclusively from our practitioner community. So the Institute of Restorative Health.com is the school that I run. And then if you want to follow me directly and connect with me, Instagram is probably the best place to do it. I've got to say, I'm not super active there because I try to minimize my time on socials. But my handle is at Margaret Floyd Barry. Well, you'll put it in the show notes, I'm sure. Yeah. Barry, not Barry, like raspberry, Barry.
I will be sure to share so the spelling is correct. Last two questions. Since you are in the functional medicine world, if there's one piece of advice you could give us that would improve our health in a positive way, what would that
be? Do the thing that you know you should be doing. Every one of us, it's so individual. I'm not going to give a recommendation like get more sleep, although you probably could, and move more, and eat this or that. What I'm going to say is every one of us has a thing that we know we should do. Maybe it was the New Year's, here we are talking in January. Maybe it was that New Year's resolution that you were so excited about that you abandoned by, what is the date? January 9th or something is like the date at which most people drop their New Year's resolutions. So maybe it's that, or maybe it's just something that is that thing that you need to do that is going to up-level your health. Make a commitment to doing it. I think that then in every person on here, if you're a practitioner or not a practitioner, that there's a thing. Just one thing. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It doesn't have to be big. It could be as simple as like you're going to do 10 push-ups a day, whatever it is, just something simple, but commit to doing that thing.
Yeah. So far, my resolutions are sticking in place, which is a good thing for me.
Job.
Yeah. Thank you. Last question. You have been a great guest on the Prime Health podcast. I always ask the guests, what is your definition of Prime Health?
My definition of Prime Health. Prime health would be truly thriving, doing everything that you want to do, not being held back physiologically, physically, mentally. I believe firmly that if you have the desire, a real desire, not a just pretend desire, but like a real authentic desire to do a thing, that you have the capacity within you to do that. And so my definition of Prime Health would be that your physiology is on board with that and is able to allow you to live your life the most fully, whatever that looks like for you.
Mm-hmm. I enjoy the podcast really for everything, but I always love hearing everybody's answer to that question because it is unique to everyone, just like success is unique to everyone. So thank you for sharing that and for taking a deep breath and thinking about it first for your answer. That was very good. I appreciate it. So Margaret, you've been a great guest. I truly appreciate it. I do tell everybody when they're on here, it's so important because the story came from you and unfortunately your mother as well. That made you change at the start and what you've done through your career and how you've helped other people, corporations, employees change. It's really important. And the reason I say that is if there's one thing that you said on this podcast as somebody's listening or watching, please share it to another. We would love for you to share it as many as people possible, but just with one person, if you can share that message because you want that corporation to get better, you want that employee to get better, or you want your mom, dad, sister, brother, or friend or family to improve, please do share it. From my perspective, I always ask people if they would share the podcast just because we would love to get more viewers and listeners on that. But until next time, as I always say, remember that we are on a journey of true wellness together. Whether you're taking action in your own health or guiding somebody else in theirs, every step forward matters. So please do stay committed to your Prime Health journey. Again, Margaret, thank you very much for being a great guest on the Prime Health podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to talk about all of this stuff.